You are currently the only person in this conference.
Can it sound? How's that sound going? Oh, this is strange. How's that sound going? Susie, can we test the sound?
I can hear you. It all sounds good from here.
Fantastic. You're lovely and loud and clear. So, is that the same for you?
I am just about so far onto my laptop I'm eating it as I'm talking. But yes, I can hear you quite crisp and clear.
Awesome. I've struggled with microphones today. I've had to move to a tiny little office and we're having a windstorm. So it's kind of like a balancing act between being here clearly and not getting all the whistling, the winds and the trees banging against the side.
Oh, dear. As long as we skip an earthquake, huh?
Oh, don't. You can see it's a brick wall behind me.
Yeah, I can see the brick wall. Yeah. You kidding? I lived in Porirua for 5 years. I know what earthquakes are.
I take comfort that this brick wall has survived since the 1960s. So I'm assuming it should do us for the next hour.
Ooh. Very good.
Okay. Well, I might turn the sound off and just quickly rehearse my presentation and be back online in a little under 9 minutes, I guess.
Yep, 9 more minutes to go.
Cheers.
Okay, grab a coffee.
Will do. See ya.
Okay, are we just about ready to go, Austen? Yep, you're unmuted. Okay. Right, just to introduce you, this is Austen, all the way from New Zealand. So here's at the very, very start of where the future becomes today. And he's going to talk to us about Totara, and that's one of the flavors, if you will, of Moodle, and how that can help with corporate training. Okay, over to you.
Thanks very much, Trish. I don't know if my organisation wishes to be considered cutting edge of anything, but we do use our LMS for a tad more than training, and as you'll see. So this is very much case study, and I'll go through a process of describing who I am, what we do, L&D context, and then some sort of like mini case studies within it. Perhaps for the Don.Libby, who I haven't had the opportunity to meet, maybe just in the chat bit, you might just say where you're from. But I'll start with me first, and I'll do that on the screen. Okay, so I'm a mammal, and normally when I go to Moodle Moots, there's an assumption of people try to figure out how that relates to Moodle. It doesn't. I'm a road cyclist, and I'm proud of it. Perhaps more relevant is that I consider myself a corporate Moodler. And I've been at this now coming up 7 years, starting with Moodle 1.6. We are, as an organisation, really strong in customising Moodle and now Totara, and we're quite proud of some of these things have ended up in core Moodle and many more in the core Totara. I've put down this rather elderly award now for open source use of Moodle. We're immensely proud of it. As an organisation, we can't and don't enter very many award ceremonies. So it is somewhat of a novelty for our organisation. I'm also very happy to connect with any Moodlers on LinkedIn, so there's a shameless plug for my connection. Okay, so moving on to the organisation that I come from. Inland Revenue is New Zealand's tax department, 5,500 staff, and you can see the site. What I think is relevant here is that, and maybe this is a symptom of a small country, is that about a third of our people aren't involved in tax administration. They do other things, student loans, child support, KiwiSaver, a number of sort of social policy stuff. And so it's quite a lot of stuff in addition to tax. And as you probably know from your own country, tax and social policy stuff is an area that goes through frequent change through legislation. And so our world constantly changes, and we've got waves of change. You know, this year's change will take a couple of years. The year before is still in its cycle. And so change is a really common thing for us. I'm sure that's true of all organizations. But the thing about tax is that no one likes it when we get it wrong. So there's quite a lot of pressure on us to be technically correct. So in our L&D context, we have these three cycles, sort of before it happens, while it's happening, and following up for those who didn't happen along the way. We don't really have external providers for what we do. Most of the training we can purchase externally is from quite a different perspective. It tends to be from accountants dealing with Inland Revenue rather than Inland Revenue dealing with accountants. So there aren't really sort of options for us to get our stuff elsewhere. So as a result, we tend to build our own training products, and our in-person delivery is generally a subject matter expert. We did a survey a few years ago where we asked staff what was the most trusted source of information for your job, and the overwhelming answer was the person they sit next to. So our L&D practice, as I said, suddenly attached to training that's in-house, in a classroom, and by a fellow staff member. Since the LMS came online in 2006, we are moving. And you can see 42%, 58%. But that's changed quite quickly. It's sort of grown and grown and grown and grown. And I would expect that by the end of this year, it'll be 50-50 mix. And a couple of years on, I can see that increasingly we'll use online in preference to classroom. Whether that's a good thing or not is another matter. So now looking at our LMS journey, we were a Moodle 1.6, 1.8, 1.9. I'm sure it's very familiar to most of you. We imported some early Totara stuff. We're quite lucky. The Totara folk are in the same city as us. They stole our developer from our vendor to work for them. so we feel quite close. We were an early adopter, which is uncharacteristic for our organisation of Totara 1, and then we upgraded last year to Totara 1.1. Totara has more recently launched 2.4 to align with Moodle 2.4, and we're not there yet. We will be towards the end of this year, but it's quite a big leap, and you'll see shortly the level of customization I'm talking about, why that's quite a big leap. Hi, Michael. I see your thing in the chat there. We're just asking people to say where they come from, if you wouldn't mind. Same for you, Meg, if you wouldn't mind, just a little hello, where you're from. So the LMS in our environment hosts all the training. There's no competition for the LMS. All the face-to-face booking is through the LMS. The face-to-face module has been a runaway success in our environment, and now pretty much everything, not just training, seminars, conferences, work groups, some meetings, some cross-business group activities. It's going to allow a hand, and it's kind of cool because it means the LMS is central and being used. As a result, the LMS is quite heavily trafficked, and we host a lot of course pages. I'm not going to label what is Totara and how it's different from Moodle, and I will say at the beginning that we're an organisation of high ethics, if you like, and we have a policy that we don't endorse, support, or promote the services that we consume. So I'm not allowed to say anything positive or negative about it, so I'm just going to state to the facts. It's a Moodle. There's some business stuff added, it's a value to us, and its business model slightly different. You have to subscribe to gain access initially, and also to receive updates. That's not exactly free, is it? But it's quite similar to the Red Hat model for the service software that might use, or other types of open source stuff where there is a cost. From our perspective, the subscription cost is really small. It's dwarfed by hosting costs or the endless rounds of security checks that we have to do, and dwarfed again by the cost of actually building any e-learning product. If you want a lot more detail about Totara, I suggest you go to the Totara LMS. And just on how it's pronounced, Totara is a particularly impressive tree in New Zealand. Totara is something else. I don't know what that is, but it's definitely Totara. It's kind of trying to say it with one syllable. Now, for many of you, the following will be well established to you, but I'll just quickly go through it because it is a case study. From an academic point of view of Moodle, the students' interaction, it's their main place. The students know their cohort, and when they're finished, their records go somewhere else to a student management system, and the course is reset. I know that's a gross simplification, and there's lots of other ways you can use Moodle course pages, but if you look at the hardcore academic use of Moodle, I think that's a reasonable summary. In a corporate setting, the LMS and the course pages that it provides is only one small thing to support the performance of staff employed in a role. It competes with the person sitting next to them, handouts, resources, information on the intranet, structured courses elsewhere, and qualifications. So it's competing against quite a lot of noise. The model of course pages is also different. It is very much a sufficiency model, just for me, just in time, just enough. And our course pages you generally only visit once, only for a few minutes. And when you're done, though, you're forever enrolled in it because that's your academic record of attendance and participation. We don't leverage much in the way of social aspect stuff of Moodle, the forums, feedback module, those sorts of things have some use in some course pages, but on the whole, they're not heavily used. And then there are different models of how businesses use this. In our business, we have made the decision that the LMS will record all training, and as you'll see in a moment, that's quite important for where we're going in the L&D direction. Now, what I have now is a mini case study, now put in the context of our LMS, and I want to talk to you about that's quite a big move from pull to push. And there's a little diagram here, I think that hopefully makes a bit more sense of this. I take the view that when you first have an LMS, you have a few course pages, and everyone's very excited about the shiny new toy that they've got. And there's a sense that something new is happening, but there aren't very many courses. So people browse the front page, and over time it gets a little bit bigger. You start adding more course pages, you start categorizing, you're starting having categories within categories. And there comes a point where maybe it's 100, maybe it's 200 courses, where search becomes the main tool by which staff find appropriate development solutions. And then there's another point, maybe it's 500 courses, maybe it's 1,000 courses, where suddenly even search has become not so useful. And for us, that part became apparent when we realized that our staff were beginning to use frameworks. They were using bits of paper where they would listed a range of courses that might be useful for their role, and then accessing them via the internet. So we thought, through the LMS. So we thought, right, then let's support frameworks in the LMS. And then that very quickly morphed into role templates, and parts of the business started adding competencies. These are development competencies in my head. These, I'm just distracted by when you're going to put up these slides. I think the slides are up. I'm talking to my slides. Are they not visible? You can see. Okay. Oh, after dot. Yes, they'll remain online here. So we moved in time. We moved to role templates that use competencies, and then because this was getting really messy and it was difficult for a staff member to understand the distinction between a course page that is a template and a course page that's a course, we moved to this new idea for us of individual development plans. Now, the Totara distribution of Moodle has a model of development plans. It's a separate section that you go to, and it's functionally complete, but it's not integrated. And that didn't work for me. So let me show you what this means in practice. Alrighty. So here is the front page of our LMS for a staff member who doesn't have an individual development plan. It should be quite recognizable to you as a Moodle 1.9. There's the traditional course category functions. Here's an HTML block with some images and text to links to course pages. This is a neat little visual indicator thing that was built a long, long time ago. It just shows ticks when you've got a passing score in a particular course page, an orange box if you've got a grade that isn't a pass and is less, but isn't null, and shows a big red cross if the grade is null. And then down here some main menu stuff. So that's the picture. To be fair, is there is a model school near our national office that was very famous in the 1950s for, obviously had a lot of money, for doing some really elaborate road school testing for kids. And they mocked up a mini town, and they had kids from all over the Wellington region go in these little pedal cars. It was quite famous at the time. It was well before I was born. But we rotate these pictures with historical images because it's quite hard for us to otherwise find images that are tax appropriate. And anyway, so yes, we do. We have occasionally a sense of humour. So we'll move on. So this is what we were, and this is what we are. So this is the index page of our LMS. So when you click on the link to go to the LMS, this is the page you meet. And we have single sign-on, so it immediately knows who you are. There's no log-on requirement. And it shows in this first section the courses that you have indicated that you're going to do. Now recognize that course where there is a booking for a face-to-face session, there is an upcoming date. For an online course that you've indicated that you've got to do, there's no measure or tool to indicate this commitment to do it in the future. So our intent here was that you could add it to your plan and you could add a due date. You'll see for me, I'm exemplifying the behaviour of quite a few learners. I've left everything to the last minute, and they're all due on the last day of the year. You'll also note, again, exhibiting a non-uncommon behaviour, there's a few things I haven't done yet that are overdue. But we'll just move over there because this is actually my live plan and I don't have very long to fix this. One of the immediate things you'll notice is this is really quite busy. And there is, yeah, it's still not right. I think it's just too busy. It should be cleaner and more concise. One thing that we can do to help, or a learner can do to help to make their page a bit cleaner, is that they can use this filter button that we built, so they can filter whether it just shows the current week, month, or year. and before it was just showing the year. So when I filter by month, you can see that only one event is shown, and my overdue courses don't escape me. You'll also see further down that I've now expanded this section here, which is my development activities aligned to my competencies. So in my development plan, one of these other tabs that relates to competencies, I've signaled that there are a range of competencies that I should be developing on, and my team leaders agree. And so when new courses arrive, they are shown here. And I don't know if you can see it. I'll zoom in a wee bit. There's a plus and an eyeball symbol. There it is. So when I click on the plus button, this course is added to my development plan. When I click on the eyeball, this suggestion is hidden, so I'm not bothered with it again. And we think this is quite a useful way. Now, I said at the beginning we've got 2,700 courses. We add between 20 and 50 a week, and we archive a similar amount. So there's quite a lot of churn and change in our environment, and I think it's quite important for us to have a meaningful way to highlight new courses to our learners. So this is the method that we use. And then further down, here we go, we have a second view window that can be opened up, which shows development activities that are somehow connected to you. So you recognize that the competencies you need to be doing is a really powerful tool about what you should be looking at for development, but recognizing also that's not perfect. So this second drop-down area is pretty much a catch-all. So anything that's connected to you in some way, whether it's a course you did in the past, it's a physical building you're in, your business group area, so it's a catch-all. And in the example here, it's very short because I've recently pruned it, whereas for many people this is quite long. Now, when you look at this, if you're an L&D person, you'll be thinking this is heavily biased towards training courses. And since this has now become a development plan, surely there's lots of development that isn't formal training. And that's certainly true for us. So we had to think of something that we could leverage within the Moodle Totara software set that would be useful. So we went to town with comments. We went really to town with comments, and you'll see this in a moment. So Moodle 2.2, I think it was, started introducing comments on the course page. And certainly 2.4 and I gather 2.5 as well has gone a little bit further with how far you can use comments. And I'm hoping we might be able to influence this a little bit further. We've done a customization to not only make comments work across the site, but also to have a different kind of relationship from a standard Moodle. The center of this communication and comments is between the staff member and their manager, which is kind of a different concept than you might have in an academic sense, where you might be between classmates or between a presenter or speaker or facilitator or the teacher and the student. So it's a different kind of relationship. It tends to be more aligned to how we think of conversations that occur in the messaging part of, say, Facebook. So, hi Dot, I hadn't thought of the checklist plugin, I should look at that. So these comments have gone to town, and we have comments to reflect and confirm development choices. So this is awkwardly a real-world example. Apparently I need help on my presentation skills, and because I like technology a lot, I went and booked on an advanced PowerPoint course, and my manager has been very, very clear about that's not the right solution. So this is an enduring record in my development plan to indicate that that was the wrong choice, and that a more appropriate choice was appropriate. They can also use comments to capture development choices that are again not training. So my new manager has indicated that I overly rely on online events, and has challenged me to do 3 classroom sessions. So I have gone and done that. And she has responded with feedback about, it wasn't always good, but the learning was there. And you can imagine in the context of a list of all your courses, your list of these types of development activities, suddenly development planning is getting quite strong. Then parts of the business said, we don't trust managers to write good comments. You give us a template model. So what we've done is we've got a predefined comment. So it's got a little funny ID tag, and where you put the button in, there's a little bit of HTML you have to buff around with. But essentially, you can have a default comment to describe development activity. The sample I've got here is for staff who have indicated desire to be a people leader, and one of the many things we get them to do to collect evidence that that's appropriate is we get them to deliver, chair their own team meetings. Here's some structure about chairing 3 of them and some aspects to look for. And you can imagine from a development plan and evidence for candidacy to go on our people leader courses, this would be one of many things, but useful evidence for that purpose. Okay. Now, adding comments is one thing, but knowing that there is another, and knowing that they're there and can respond to them is another. They are by nature a dialogue, a communication. And we looked at the forum model where you get an email or a digest email of posts, and we found that that didn't work. And the reason it didn't work is we already send too many emails. We sent over 300,000 emails last year from our LMS to our 5,500 staff. And while that is on paper an average of only 60, I think, messages, it's utterly uneven. Team leaders receive thousands of emails each year from us, and they don't read them. And if we suddenly dramatically increase that with comments, they're not going to read those either. So email wasn't the solution for us. So we added notifications. So this is hardly new or earth-shattering technology. You're familiar with it from LinkedIn or Facebook or Google+. In past moots, there have been examples of people who have hacked these things together in a theme, and that's exactly what we've done here. So we have a count shown of unread notifications next to your logged in as. The little bit of code that displays that also appears on the front page of our intranet, which is your home page when you log on to your PC in the morning. And when you click on it, you get the traditional notification model that you would expect. In the case I've got here, I couldn't find any staff member who had good training stuff that wasn't sensitive or too real. So I've gone for one of my colleagues who's a trainer. So in this case, they can see that someone's attending the course. They can see we had an outage earlier in the week. They can see that someone's just booked the last place on a session. We're quite hot on that because it's quite hard for us to predict demand for face-to-face sessions. When the last place is booked, we alert the trainer so that they have as early as possible to know that there's lots of demand and to schedule some additional sessions. That's the model for how we get comments integrated in a real sense. And so what you have now is the list of your formal activities. You have your way of recording informal activities as they occur. And to be useful as a development plan, they need to put a way to be combined. And so we have a PDF export just using a very standard PDF plugin as part of Moodle 1.9 and tidied up slightly to just list some profile information, your name, and the date that was printed, and then list the plan by competencies, development activities you've done related to it, and then any comments. And this is really quite straightforward stuff, but for us it's quite a powerful change because prior to this, development plans were done in a document that you looked at once a year at the beginning of the year, and then once again at the end of the year and said, oh, look at all the things I didn't do. Whereas this document is a snapshot at any time during the year, and at the end of the year, an automatic summary of all the development activities you've done, hopefully all of the comments that support it. So, that's a first little case study. So push to pull. So what we discovered when we started adding the courses, we discovered we had a bias towards formal development, and so we had to fix that with comments. The problem with comments and development solutions is suddenly everything got really busy, and it doesn't feel mature and complete yet. So we've got some work to do. But I hope as fellow Moodlers, I can see how they've solved that, and there's a progression here. It looks like we're on the right path for this one. So that's where we're going. The next case study I have is supporting operations management. For those of you who don't know about operations management, it is a very process-centric factory type approach. And we have parts of our business that are like that. We receive millions of pieces of mail each year, and mail has particular properties. You know, there's different size envelopes, there's got returns and loose bits of paper that are critically important. They stay attached, like checks or the evidence. Sometimes people send us things other than their returns, so we've got to have some practices and safety stuff around white powder and other things that might be in an envelope. And we use machines to open envelopes. They open maybe 10, 20,000 envelopes an hour. And so there are some technical skills to be learned, but it's very much task-based. Operations management has a very task-centric, task-measured model. However, from an L&D perspective, operations management has a key weakness, and that is for every task, there tends to be a training product. And so when you have 30 tasks that are all very similar, you tend to get 30 training products, which are effectively, they're the same. And in a case when we first started, I went to one of our processing centres and discovered they had a training course for people who open one size of envelope, and then they have another training course for people who open exactly the same size of envelope, but because it comes at a different time of the year and tends to be with different forms, but otherwise it's the same thickness, they had a different course. They're exactly the same skills. And this is common to a task-centric model. So we worked hard with them to challenge this at the start, particularly around the measurement of skills. Show you what that looks like. Looks pretty busy, doesn't it? It does require some interpretation. So along the side here is the list of people in your team. So this is quite a small team. Most people will have 12 to 15 people. And on the side here in this matrix view is the tasks currently undertaken within that team. Now that you know those two elements, you can probably go, okay, so black's not good. Green means they can probably do it. Yellow means some sort of intermediate state, and red means that they need training. And that would be correct. And that's at a snapshot how you can view a team, and that's quite useful. The other thing that is fortunate is we swap team leaders all the time. So people move between teams a lot. Well, the teams tend to stay the same. The team leaders tend to move a lot. And so this is one way where a team leader can pass on who can do what to the next team leader reasonably automatically. Team leaders have to do this once a month. They have to confirm that it's correct for the month. And if they don't confirm it, the task drops off their list, for example, the ratings revert back to unrated. And so this is quite a powerful tool in terms of keeping it current. But let's not forget here that this is a lot of decisions that team leaders are being asked to make. So we spent some time and some dollars on the interface screen for putting in the ratings. So this is a rating screen. At a glance, it shows what the task is, and then also it shows immediately after who the staff member is. And for the purpose of the presentation, I've got Einstein, and I can assure you he's never worked for an review. And I've got a current rating, development required. I'm sure he would have got it. You can see here a history of when this was assigned to the team, when the rating was last assigned. So if you consider that if this staff member did this skill 7 months ago, and they were an expert at it, if it's dropped to 0, you could probably safely assume they're probably still an expert if it was simple, which CST addresses, or if it's complex, or there's been a change to the legislation or the rules around it, they might need a refresher. But as a team leader, you'd be able to interpret that really quickly. What I'm really proud of here is the integration of comments. So often when a staff member requires development, the presumption is they do a training course. But in fact, the reality is they probably just need to sit by someone and just make sure that there aren't any gaps in how they do it, or just to read something short to bring them up to speed, or maybe they just need to take their time on the first few ones that they process just to make sure they're feeling comfortable. And so the intent here is to make sure that training is used more effectively without getting in the way of productivity. So from the point of view of supporting operations management, we learned a few things. From an L&D point of view, we found them very difficult to work with. L&D is a creative process. It's one where you repeat and work through and you improve, and you tend to use experimentation a little bit to figure out what works best for an audience. and operations management folk are not that. They see the world in black and white. There is a right way, there is a wrong way. The way you set it up at the beginning is the way it will always be. And we found it really difficult to cope, interact, and be credible with that audience, and we found it hard. However, the positive side is, having worked through those, now that we've got good practices, they're consistently followed, they're maintained, they're measured, and they're always done. They expect their training to be the same. That's possibly true, but that's a little bit tougher than that. They expect their training to always be effective. And the variability of how variable the staff who do training makes it really hard. You're certainly measurable, there's no doubt. If the training isn't delivering what is expected, it gets dumped, and we have to work hard again to be credible and in this space. Moving on now to, if you like, case study number 3, or the current work component, is knowledge workers. And this is, I think, where the business use and Moodle, traditional academic Moodle use, is kind of interesting to contrast and compare. So, from the point of view of a business, we know how to support people, leaders, and process workers. They have clear work practice, and they tend to have clear training products that support the development types of skills and inputs to how they should do things. And we're reasonably comfortable about L&D practice to support that. The problem is these damn knowledge workers. These are people who are very successful generally without any formal training. The work they do is the learning for what they do. Now, yes, there's a threshold to reach to become a knowledge worker, but once you're a knowledge worker, you tend to develop by doing. That's really hard to support. So what we've been working on is a model of how we're going to support knowledge workers in our environment. So this is more purist L&D activity here. So we've got this model that we're using, and the diagram suggests that there's a nice logical order. I think the evidence is this is actually chaotic. And so knowledge workers discover resources and information, or it doesn't matter whether it's a book or an internet page or a blog they follow or a person they talk to. They have a discovery part of, I have this business problem to solve, and here are the resources I'm going to find. They collaborate to build new knowledge, whether that's collaboration by leveraging existing information or talking to people and working with other people. And they have a sharing model. The output of the knowledge work is sharing. It might be a report, it might be a series of meetings or presentations to change a behaviour. Then the other component of how knowledge workers work is they reputate. LinkedIn does this very well. In LinkedIn, your reputation is based on measures such as how many connections you have, how many recommendations you have, how well you've articulated what it is you do, the quality of your picture, for want of a better phrase, the listing of your qualifications. There is a sense of credibility. And in a knowledge worker sense, reputation, I think, is a very important aspect. What we're doing in the LMS is we're taking this head on, and we're doing a land grab for the phone directory where we have all the things you expect to find in our phone directory, who you are, how to connect, and then we add stuff that's trivial for the LMS. We allow people to describe what it is they're working on. So that would just be the profile stuff in your profile area. We allow people to attach documents of things they wish to share and promote. And we already have in the LMS lots of ways of uploading documents, particularly in 2.4 onwards, where you can just drag and drop. So we can't use SlideShare, for example. There's no reason why you can't share a slideshow within the organization using the Moodle tools. We also allow people to connect and follow. So what this is if you follow someone, when they change job, you get a notification. If you've got an email, you'd ignore it, but a notification you might be interested to see. If you link to someone, then you get to, and they agree, they get to see your performance objectives, your development objectives, and any courses that you've got coming up, or conferences or seminars. So there's a way of increasing that linkage between people that you interact with that is otherwise unavailable through a phone directory tool. And since we can't use open tools like LinkedIn or Facebook to talk about work things, this is our attempt to support knowledge workers. So, That's real-world use of Totara, told by three perspectives. Grown up now, that all of the stuff you've seen is quite strongly customized from standard Totara. And while it's possible this stuff will make it into mainstream Totara, and some of it might even make it into Moodle, I can't assume that. But what I can tell you is that the real-world use of Totara is just like the real-world use of Moodle. It's all about being able to adapt the software to meet your requirements and to really leverage its openness. So for us, that's been a success factor. So, and that brings me to a conclusion. Are there any sort of questions about what we do and how we do it with our LMS? How easy was it to move from Moodle to Totara? From a technical level, it was quite simple. The Totara prefers the Postgres database rather than MySQL, which was fine because we were already using Postgres, but I know from a colleague at another agency that's made the move, they found the database change a little bit hard. They had to do some additional work there. Otherwise, it's a standard Moodle with extra plugins and configuration. So you've got a new theme to deal with and some new theme elements to manage. So if you already know Moodle, it's quite a small change. And I believe the same is true if you move from a standard Moodle to the dual product that Moodle introduced. Moodle 2, oh golly, I don't know. We've got project manager and we've asked and bid for lots of money. We're expecting this migration from Totara 1.1 to Totara 2.4, which is Moodle 1.9 to Moodle 2.4, to be quite hard. We have 3.5 years worth of customizations layered on top of customizations in our Moodle 1.9 environment, and we're expecting this migration to 2.4 to be quite hard. Yeah, we're expecting it to be quite hard, and not because the software is wrong and not because our vendor's not up to it, but because we've really customized and configured our environment, and yeah, so we're expecting it to be a real challenge. And we found that the Totara 1.0 to 1.1 to be surprisingly hard, so we're taking a very cautious approach. So we're expecting. Oh, golly, Trish, wow. We're in a lucky position. We have our organisation is many things, but it likes to see the world as black and white. So it has a really clear organisational chart, and we're able to pull it in directly, and it really sings with the clarity between who reports to whom. Yeah, and so we pushed really hard to get single sign-on back in 2006. And we equally pushed really hard to make sure we've got live data from our HR system directly into the LMS. So I always live in fear of people who try and manage accounts manually through their Moodle. 5,500 people. Yeah, that would be hard to maintain. I don't quite understand your question. Our Moodle network is fully internal. Oh, okay. So Dot, I assume you've been looking at Totara and you've been looking at an external hosting arrangement. That's quite a common way to do Totara because it's quick and easy, and I suspect that might be the future of Moodle as well. We don't do that. We host everything internally behind something greater than the the firewall of China. So no, we can't go to the cloud. We won't go to the cloud. We just the government policy to use the cloud first, and for us, the tension for security is such that it would be very hard for us to go to the cloud. That would be my preference, but I can't see that happening anytime soon. We'll be internally hosted for quite some time. Oh, how does it report? So we're a SAP HRMIS system. I can't quite remember which version of SAP we're on. It's not the current one. I think it might be one iteration back. And we sync directly through two means. We go through LDAP for live updates, and then we use an overnight sync to fully flush and populate all reporting structures. And we get a lot of data from HR. Yeah, a lot of data. So the start date, manager, performance review, performance rating. Yeah, we get a lot of data. We used to use Chris before we went to SAP. We went Chris 21, I think we were Chris 19 or earlier. And we had a similar situation. Again, main data through LDAP and then a nightly sync. The Chris stuff wasn't quite as smooth for us. Chris allowed quite a lot of customization in forms and naming, and didn't have quite as strong data validation. So you had some stray characters in there. So not that I wish to promote SAP, but for us, we found the quality of data from SAP a little bit sharper than internal reporting. Internal reporting is really hard, and Totara has a reporting engine, and you can set up quite graphical, well, not moderately graphical reports. Everything still resorts to Excel, and you can automate it so people get reports mailed to them each day. The problem we have is that people look at the wrong data to report on. They tend to look at how many people went to sessions and how long they were at the session, and they tend not to be so interested about what the change in performance is when you've applied this group of competencies to people and then let them choose development solutions. And they tend not to be interested about the contrast between whether one course was better towards performance than another. They just tend to be cared about one course or one person. So we have a lot of data. We're just confident we use it very well. Alrighty. Okay, so Dot and Ned seem to have their own conversation. Now let's try and jump into the conversation. Are there any other sort of questions for our use before I sort of sign off here? Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much for joining me. I hope you do. I'm certainly looking forward to the balance of iMoot, and thank you very much for joining in. Bye all.
Thank you very much, Austen. It's Meg from the iMoot team. I've taken over from Susie. But yes, thank you very much for that. Hopefully we can get your slideshow up on the course soon. That would be great, and so it's there for everyone to access. Otherwise, unless there are any final questions, thank you very much.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye.
You are